Hello, Juan Manuel. Good morning. So nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
So we'll go for like 30, 40 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes.
First of all, what should I call you? How do you want me to address you?
Brad would be great.
Okay. So we'll start.
Great.
From Columbia Journalism School in New York City, this is Juan Manuel Benítez Wants to Know. At the beginning of 2025, many thought our guest would become the next mayor of New York. But things didn't go his way in the June Democratic primary. Brad Lander has been the city's comptroller for the last 3.5 years, and before that, he served in the city council for 12 years, representing a district in Brooklyn that includes Park Slope, Gowanus, Cobble Hill, and Carroll Gardens. Now he's supporting his former rival in the primary, Queens Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, and we are guessing, thinking about what to do once his term as comptroller expires on December 31st. Thank you for talking to me today.
Great to be with you.
Okay, so Brad, this is going to be hard, but Brad, is it fair to say that for people in progressive circles, you were the guy who was going to become mayor in 2026?
Well, look, I genuinely never presume anything. Normally a mayor gets reelected. So up until the indictment, even though I didn't think he was a great mayor, I would have thought Eric Adams would have been reelected. And once Andrew Cuomo entered the race, I generally, sadly, I didn't want conventional wisdom to be true, but, I always thought of it as an uphill effort. One thing I note is I'm the 45th controller of the city of New York, which is an awkward number to be of a job. But I'm not going to run again after Mark Levine, so I won't be 45 and 47 like someone else. But in any case, I think they all wanted to be mayor, and only one of the 45 made it. That was Abe Beam, and no one writes any songs about Abe Beam's mayoralty. So, I'm a numbers guy, and that is data. Controller is a great job from which to learn how the city runs, think about how to use the budget better, make agencies run better. It might not attract the most charismatic people. It's not the sexiest job. And you have to both know how to run the city and, put out a compelling enough message and campaign to get elected. So, I always knew that would be an uphill battle. And when I was elected controller 4 years ago, I did it by, in that case, folks who voted either for Maya Wiley, the progressive voters, or for Catherine Garcia, the more pragmatic, or moderate voters, voted for me for controller, and that was my coalition. And I worked hard to put that coalition back together, but it's not an easy coalition to hold. People, I would say, want a champion, so the left wants someone that really looks like the left champion, and the more pragmatic folk, want someone that signals like that. Not so easy to build that coalition. So I, look, I went into this race starting with more name recognition than Zohran, that's for sure, and having won citywide. But not only did I never take it for granted, I always thought it would be uphill. If you had asked me 6 months ago, if you're not mayor, who's going to be mayor, I would have said, as sad as it would have made me, I think Andrew Cuomo is the likely to win. I certainly, like everybody else, would not have guessed. I did not see Zohran's, remarkable rise in campaign coming. I started to see the signs of it through the campaign, but certainly didn't have that idea at the beginning.
Yeah, 2 weeks before the primary, you and Mamdani cross-endorsed. Was it at that point that you realized that you weren't going to win the Democratic primary, and that you wanted a progressive to beat former Governor Andrew Cuomo?
Yes. That developed over some time, so I can't say it was like on that day, but it had been coming. Now, I had been saying for many months, really since the start of the campaign, people would ask, well, what about ranked choice voting? How do we learn about that? And I would usually say, look, 4 years ago, if Catherine Garcia and Maya Wiley had cross-endorsed each other, probably one of them would be the mayor, and we wouldn't have Eric Adams, this whole awful corruption and yield to Donald Trump timeline. So I felt some responsibility to be, and I said to people around me, look, I want to be in the best position to win, but I also need you to be real with me because I don't want to do what happened 4 years ago. And then, of course, you see it developing over time. I mean, I watched him rising in the polls. I watched the kind of viral social media. You feel the energy out on the streets or in the forums. And yes, by that time, it was clear to me that it was essentially a two-person race. I had a role to play in it, plenty of people who still were supporting me, but that if I was serious, if I want, as you say, if I believed strongly as I did that Andrew Cuomo should not be mayor, and if I wanted, as I do, a progressive to win, I could keep running, putting my case out there. Oh, one more thing I guess I should say, because this is related to the media. I think I held out hope that the New York Times might do an endorsement, even though they had said they weren't going to, till quite late in the race. Of course, they did wind up writing that bizarre, what I call an editorial riddle. They should put it in like the games section with Wordle and connections, I think. But I thought maybe there would be that endorsement, and that, as it had for Catherine Garcia, might change the field a bit. But it became increasingly clear that that wasn't happening. I was honored to win this opinion panel they put together, but it did not function in the same way. So yes,
I have to say, Brad, that as you know, the New York editorial board that I'm a member of interviewed you in December, and then we interviewed every single Democratic candidate except Andrew Cuomo, who canceled.
Who stood
on
you up?
us.
What was that?
And after all the transcripts were published on our Substack, the New York editorial board, I asked ChatGPT to give me the ranked choice ballot, and you were at the top of it.
I'm the candidate of ChatGPT. That's actually sadly apt, I think, and I mean, I really enjoyed coming into the New York editorial board. And, obviously, if the question is who's the most prepared, who's, got a resume that says they know how the city works, who's dug in on the city agencies, um, it's not surprising to me that ChatGPT would say that was me, or that the Times opinion panel would say that was me. And I'm proud of all of that. And I also respect that this is what a democracy is. You gotta be somebody who puts a vision out that inspires and compels people. And that's what Zohran did in this campaign more effectively than I was able to. Respect to him for it. But that's pretty funny. I don't think I did put Times opinion panel on my lit. I don't know though what I would have put. Brad Lander endorsed by ChatGPT on my lit.
So, Brad, I want to know, will we see a first deputy mayor Lander in a Mamdani administration?
It's too soon, well, first I'll say the Mamdani, campaign in transition will make its decisions. And, he has to now put together a team that shows how he'll lead New York, that he feels 100% confident in. Look, there are no, vice mayors, and that's a good thing, right? Like sometimes the candidate who comes in, second or whatever is doing, in the primary is who a presidential candidate chooses for vice president. But then vice presidents don't do anything because they are running they got their own ambitions, their own agenda. They're not, it's what he has to do is put a staff together. So they're going to be moving forward as they've announced with that process. I'm eager to help however I can. I mean, I'm eager to help him win in November.
So you haven't had that conversation with him though?
Yeah, I want to just keep, private conversations private, and the campaign, Zohran's campaign and transition will make its campaign and transition announcements. I'm working hard to help them win. I'm eager to help him succeed. He's got a big mandate for change. It's funny. I was with my parents over the weekend. We'll come back to this because it was actually at a meditation retreat. My mom asked me, well, how many people does he have to hire? And I said, well, 300,000 people work for the city of New York. And, it's true that 75,000 are teachers and 34,000 are cops. Um, but, that's what this job is now, is for him to lead that, an administration. And so we'll see. I love the city. I feel hopeful about it at this very dark moment in our national politics. If there's a way I can be helpful to him, inside or out, I'm eager to do it.
I'm asking this because, as you know, Zohran Mamdani is being painted by his opponents as a radical, as a communist, socialist, too young, too inexperienced. So, are you the safety net in a way for progressives to shield his candidacy in a way that by saying Brad Lander is going to be my second in command, that's going to give credibility to his campaign and might neutralize some of those attacks.
Well, he has to make that decision. And look, the cross endorsement in the primary was valuable for a lot of reasons. I think it signaled a kind of team sport approach to politics. And of course, normal people play team sports all the time. People who are not politicians or elected officials play team sports. You want to win if you'd like to be the shortstop, but the coach says someone else is going to be the shortstop and you could be the right fielder. You go play right field. But unfortunately, elected officials and politicians tend only to, approach it like an individual sport. People really liked that. Obviously, the dynamic of a Muslim New Yorker and a Jewish New Yorker running cross endorsing, I think, was very meaningful to a lot of people. And some people certainly, like the signal that it sent on thinking about a team needs to have a lot of capacities and inspiring hope and energy and vision and kind of driving things forward and organizing and doing the media well and doing the organizing well. A lot of things that his campaign did, very important parts of leading the city. And you want to signal you're going to have a team that also has many other capacities, because you have to get the garbage picked up and fight the fires and lead, teach in the schools and all kinds of things. So we'll see. He has to do that, put that team together with a lot of capacities. And if there's a useful role for me to play on it, we're in some dialogue and I'm certainly open to it. But it's much bigger, it's much bigger than that. And there are, I'm humbled to the fact that he's got a world of talent eager to help, while, Donald Trump has like fired all the federal workers to so many people to show we're going to run New York City in this really compelling way. And I'm excited about that. And however I can contribute to it.
One of the big
Glad to.
successes in Mamdani's campaign was that he was able to expand the electorate for Democrats and getting a lot of young people to vote. And normally, young people, they're not that reliable when it comes to election day or primary day. He expanded on that electorate. You mentioned earlier the significance of symbolism of a Jewish candidate and a Muslim candidate cross endorsing each other. Do you think that younger Democrats see the Israeli Palestinian conflict in a totally different way than traditional democratic politics, or what's been the consensus in democratic politics for the last few decades?
Absolutely. There's been a real sea change here, dramatically accelerated in recent weeks as well by the horrific scenes of famine in Gaza. Let me be clear, caused by the Israeli government and the IDF, in a way that even for people who have been fairly dug in since October 7th find as horrific. But yes, I mean, I will say I have had more or less the same politics on Israel and Palestine since I was 20 years old. I grew up in a Midwestern Jewish household, not a very strongly pro-Israel one, but generally, and when I went to college and met Palestinians in the fall of 1987, I was just like, whoa, no one told me about the fact that we're sharing this place with these other folks, and my narrative has to be shifted. And I, since then, have been someone who believes in the vision of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, as a homeland. But that, I was calling for an end to Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories of the West Bank and Gaza. In 1990, I wrote a letter to my hometown Jewish paper saying, we are going to have to change how we think about Palestinians. And of course, it shouldn't be that you have to choose sides. Like, Palestinians are beautiful human beings who love their families and want safety, and Israelis are beautiful human beings who love their families and want safety. But for many years, the Democratic Party has expected people to choose the side of the Israelis, essentially, over and against Palestinians, or erase them, or not see them, or tell a story that they're terrorists. And that there's always been some people who, pushing back on that, but that's been the mainstream Democratic position. And that has been shifting in recent years with young people. Israel's response to and of course, for a moment after October 7th, the world, I believe, had capacity to see the pain of Israelis and Jews, but Israel's overwhelming response, just completely inconsistent with the rules of war, or just what it means to see people as human beings, has just caused a sea change. And young people, and I say this in the Jewish world, not just in the democratic world, the most important Jewish value to me is what we say, B'Tselem Elohim, and it means every human being is created in the image of God, and therefore both equal and also divine. And young Jews who heard that in synagogue or youth group or summer camp, then they see what's happening and they say, wait, you taught me different from this. And they're angry and say, I can't believe in this, in what's happening. So yes, it's a big sea change. It's heartbreaking what's happening right now. It's necessary to cry out against and end the famine and the.
If I remember correctly, during the campaign, you were accused of being anti-Semitic by another candidate.
So Andrew Cuomo went into the West Side Institutional Synagogue, an Orthodox Jewish synagogue on the Upper West Side. Let's remember, in a city where he hasn't lived in 25 years and where I am the highest ranking Jewish elected official, and gave a speech declaring anti-Semitism the most important issue in the campaign. And anti-Semitism is on the rise, and it is an important issue, but to declare it the most important issue in the campaign, besides being like obvious pandering, and then, yes, proceeded to attack Zohran, Adrian Adams, the black speaker of the city council, for I don't know what, I guess not having gone to Israel, and me, all in the same bucket. And I have, things sort of surprise, and, you get used in politics to political attacks, and Andrew Cuomo's a bully. So his thing is just to attack all the time. And I guess maybe he's used to people being afraid of him, and so kind of backing down or whatever it is. My response was to go curse in Yiddish at him. And it's funny, the normal Yiddish curse that people would use, the most familiar Yiddish curse is geh kachen afen yam. That means go crap in the ocean. And people were surprised I hadn't used that one. I used like a more formal curse, a bezer gzar kol after kumen, which is more like an evil decree shall be upon you. I will say that I think my formal curse was what helped him lose the election, so I in hindsight it was, but the thing is, you can run against people, you can say bad things about them, you can get the New York Post to print things, but you can't make me a bad Jew, like I'm just a pretty deeply Jewish New Yorker. I come by my Jewishness, by my politics, by, my feelings about this, raising two Jewish kids in this. New York is an incredible Jewish city. Now, it's an incredible Puerto Rican city and Dominican city and Chinese city and Bangladeshi city, But it's an incredible Jewish city, as witnessed by the fact that all the candidates have to say what their bagel orders are and what their favorite deli is. And I almost feel sorry for the other candidates in this regard, because it's like, I like Jewish food, but our food is not our best thing. So I don't know why everyone else has to pretend to like it. Um, anyway, but yes, that was really an
How did it
outrageous,
feel? How did it like?
I
Did
mean,
it hurt? Especially?
well, I don't know that it hurt. The thing is, like, I don't, I wasn't worried about it. Like, my relationships between God and my rabbi and me and my synagogue and my people. Jews have been having many of the same arguments for 2,600 years, and I hope we have them for 2,600 more. But yeah, pissed off, I guess, is right. Like Donald Trump, had not that long before that attacked Chuck Schumer, used the Palestinian as a slur, said he wasn't Jewish anymore. Eric Adams is in on this game and like formed his own end anti-Semitism ballot line. And then Andrew Cuomo attacks me at like 3 non-Jews, weaponizing Jewish trauma and genuinely rising anti-Semitism for their own craven political purposes. And I wanted to win that race. I didn't want Andrew Cuomo to win that race. And I'm worried about the future of the Jewish people and our standing in New York and what will happen in Israel and Palestine, and turning it into craven political attacks really made me mad. Like in this race, I cursed more than usual. I don't generally curse in Yiddish or in English, but this definitely got me there.
Brad, you spent the last 2 decades championing progressive causes here in New York City. Was there like a specific moment or decision that shaped who you end up becoming as a public servant?
I mean, this really does go to my upbringing. I have to say, I was raised in a liberal Jewish household in St. Louis by these two parents who instilled these values, that what I call B'Tselem Elohim, that value. And I was the social action vice president of my synagogue youth group, and then the whole national like Reform Jewish youth movement. And at the year that I was the National Social Action Vice President, Jews in the Soviet Union were not being allowed out, and there was a big campaign to have them released. And Ronald Reagan was president, and we were running a big economic justice campaign because he had killed so many critical anti-hunger and anti-poverty programs. And I wanted to I wanted us to lead on both those things. I wanted us to fight and show up for Jews facing oppression. And I wanted us to fight for, in that more Martin Luther King vision of like combating racism and poverty in this country. And the Jewish figure that kind of inspired me, and that's a rabbi named Abraham Joshua Heschel, who actually lived, was born in Europe and fled the Holocaust, but lived in Manhattan for, the last decades of his life, and taught at Jewish Theological Seminary, marched with Dr. King. And his, model or inspiration is a big part of what kind of pushed me into politics.
You also have a master's in anthropology. Uh, what did that teach you about the human condition?
Yeah. It's such a great question. I don't usually get asked that. Sometimes people mock me, because they're like, what do you know about running the pension funds or municipal finance with your anthropology
That's coming
degree?
later.
All right, fair enough. But I guess what so I studied anthropology at University College London, where I was getting a master's degree, and I did my field work in the East End in a Bangladeshi community, although it had been an old white working class community and it was being gentrified. And, that core idea of listening, first recognizing, one, people in some ways are very different from each other and have pretty different understandings of what matters and what's important. And, but then on the other hand, you can come to understand them, and building some, like listening, trying to see across those lines is just incredibly powerful. And I enjoyed trying to do that as an academic. To me, it's what's great about New York City and why I like our politics here. So that I think both the inspiration, like still the things that are my favorite about New York City, are those moments of cross-cultural understanding. When I was in the city council, we made a plaza out of some old street space in Kensington this neighborhood that has a big Bangladeshi community. There's kind of a Mexican community nearby. And I'm pretty sure it's where more Bangladeshis celebrate the Day of the Dead than anywhere else on planet Earth. And that's kind of my favorite thing about New York, when moments like that happen, and they're all around us at, Celebrate Brooklyn concert series, or first Saturdays at the Brooklyn Museum, or just out on the streets. So that, just loving that thing when cultures kind of cross, and a capacity for trying to listen across lines of difference.
Going back to your job as comptroller. So if someone looked at the city's books today, is there anything that would surprise them in a positive and in a negative way?
In a positive way, bracketing Donald Trump for a minute, our books are actually in a good, strong place. This year is 50 years after the city's fiscal crisis. And I think people still have in their heads that, like, the city, does its accounting like that. But the city, changed its rules 50 years ago for careful accounting. And then, you might have thought during the pandemic, certainly that first year of the pandemic, I was worried that the special sauce of New York City would be under attack and people wouldn't want to go to nightclubs and be in close quarters with each other. But we've roared back. And so we have more private sector jobs than before. Commercial office vacancies are stabilizing. So on the one hand, all of that's good. Now, Donald Trump is threatening all of it because his trade and immigration policies are aimed right at what, makes New York City tick. So I am really nervous, and we aren't as prepared as we should be for those cuts or for the next recession. So I think if you looked at the books, you would say, whoa, all right, some things are going better than I expected, like job creation and stability. But how could you not have gotten ready? You can see what Trump is doing. And you're not ready for the budget bill cuts or for the possibility of a recession caused by the tariffs.
So there's nothing in there that you go, why are we spending this amount of money on this?
Well, that you definitely run into. I mean, last year one thing we do in the controller's office is settle claims brought against the city. And last year we paid out $2 billion in claims. The biggest two areas being traffic crashes caused by city vehicles. And yeah, there's no consequence. No, it doesn't matter, if you're like a sanitation driver or a police officer or whatever. No number of red light cameras or crashes will get you moved out of your car. So that's pretty dumb. And then category 2 is police misconduct. And there also, we don't connect the dots between CCRB complaints, settlements, and suits against the city. So yes, like if it was your money and you got sued and you had to do 12,000 settlements last year and it cost you $2 billion, you would say, hey, what's behind those things and how can we cause less harm and give away less money?
So affordability is the top issue this year in the campaign. Affordable housing, for the most part, New Yorkers cannot afford their housing. Is there a creative idea that we haven't tried yet? We talked a lot about Mamdani's proposal about freezing the rent for rent stabilized apartments, but is there a new creative bold idea out there?
I mean, the bold idea that I put out in the campaign that I was not able to get more traction, I think people treated it like a joke, but it is not a joke, is that New York City has 12 municipal city-owned golf courses. And we're in a land-starved city, and we need a lot more housing, and as much of it as possible, as affordable as we can make it. But it's hard to make it affordable when the city doesn't own the land, and it already has a very high land value. And so I propose taking just 4 of those 12 courses. There'll still be 8 golf courses. We could build 50,000 affordable homes because you don't have to pay for the land. The city owns them. We could set the prices in beautiful new neighborhoods. We could bring all our best thinking about parks and open space. So yes, those golf courses are open space, but very few people use them. Golf, you could have many, many more people in great parks with schools and neighborhoods and stores and the kinds of public spaces that excite people. So, I mean, this is an all hands issue. You have to keep rents down for existing renters, confront the problem of homelessness, fix up the housing that needs to be fixed up, help people have a pathway to home ownership, which is really suffering. But we definitely need to build a lot more housing at all levels. One thing I respect about Zohran, when asked by the New York Times in their 10 questions interview, what's one thing you changed your mind on? He said the role of the private sector in housing construction. We do need more private sector housing, but we also massively need more publicly developed or nonprofit owned or land trust or cooperative or what sometimes people call social housing. It's going to take all the tools in the tool belt to confront the housing crisis.
Now that you're not running anymore, I'm sure you have more time for things like reading. Is there a book right now that you're reading that you would recommend your friends and family?
Let's see. My what I'm reading right now I don't is very New York City politics, but it's Gods of New York, brand new book by Jonathan Mahler about the years 1986 to 1990, the third Koch term, and then the election that brought David Dinkins. Jonathan's a great author, wrote Ladies and Gentlemen, the Bronx is Burning. So it's great so far, but and that's a good read if you love New York City. Um, let's see, what's the last thing I read that I was really like, wow. Oh, you know what? I like A Half Built Garden is a wonderful kind of and if you'd call it like sci-fi or fantasy or like climate fiction, but it's lovely. Ruth Emrys, I think, is the author's name. Or if you like that and you want something about New York, I read it a couple of years ago, but N.K. Jemison's book, The City We Became, is a very delightful kind of sci-fi New York City book in which the five boroughs each have these avatars, like sort of superhero types, and they represent the personalities of their boroughs, and then they have to fight intergalactic monsters.
Is there a museum you keep going back to here in the city?
Yeah, the museum that we visited, well, I will say I'm probably most frequent at the Brooklyn Museum because First Saturday is an event as well as a museum. And if you want to see New Yorkers of every stripe, like loving their public culture, I recommend that. But for museums, the Tenement Museum on the Lower East Side. My daughter did an internship there when she was in high school. So when she was back over winter break, she's like, "Hey, Dad, you see they have a new exhibit." First time they're focusing on Black New Yorkers who weren't on Orchard Street, but who have obviously lots and lots of ties and connections. And at this moment, when the importance of New York as the greatest immigrant city the world has ever known is under attack, getting to go see, reconnect for Jewish and Irish and Italian, and New Yorkers from those longer, white immigrant traditions, but also thinking about and connecting to what that means in our history, our present, and our future, I think is that's more fun than I'm making it sound. You get to walk through cool apartments. It's very, as museums go, it's super interactive. So if people haven't been, go. And if you think of that as a place you did like a field trip when you were in elementary school, go back.
And is there a green space you go to or a park in the city whenever you have to make a big decision and you have to think and you have to go by yourself? And is there anyone specifically that you tend to go to?
I mean, Prospect Park is the place closest to my heart on planet Earth. Obviously, there are other more majestic open spaces, but I don't know any better place than that for feeling at home, for the connection between nature and the city, Brooklyn's last natural forest. And obviously for me, where my kids learn to play baseball and ride a bike. And we just finished the Celebrate Brooklyn summer concert series. That might actually be my most at-home place of all, is when, what kind of a crazy thing is it that 150 years ago, they carved out this beautiful space, kept some waterfalls, gave you a place to play baseball, And then 40 years ago, a different set of people decided, you know what we have to do is throw free concerts there all summer long with music from, everywhere. Last concert I saw there this year was Gogo Bordello, who are older than me. And, I first saw downtown many years ago and they're still rocking. It was an amazing show. So other many, many, many great parks in the city. Actually ran through Brooklyn Bridge Park this morning and it's looking great, but Prospect Park is where my heart is.
A location, a site, a building that you think should get landmark status?
Hmm. I'm gonna the thing. So I had hoped to save the Kentile Floors sign a few years ago, and we did. The owner of the building it was on took it down, but the letters are in a warehouse. And someday I really hope the Kentile Floors sign will again graced the city's skyline somewhere for so many years. Partly, we love those old signs, but it was at this place on the F train that just meant when the F train would kind of emerge from underground, come up at Smith 9th Street, and you would see them. You felt like you were home. And and in many ways what those landmarks do for
Any
us.
artificial intelligence app or tool that you use regularly?
I use ChatGPT. My wife uses Claude, so I might try that sometime. And there are some things I don't use it for, like writing the sonnet I'm gonna, when I go to perform at Shakespeare in the Park. But there's things like that. So, for example, my parents' wedding anniversary is coming up, and of course, I need some ideas for the song we'll sing at the 60th anniversary party. Perfect for coming up with things like that. I like, I mean, as I suspect anyone who's kind of given it compelling questions of all, once you start, you can't stop. So I ask it public policy questions. I love that you asked it, fed it the interviews from New York editorial board. What I hope, I listen, I can't remember the vocal artist's name. Ezra Klein had a vocal artist on a couple of years ago now who uses AI for vocal music. And she characterized it differently. She's like, let's call it collective intelligence. Like what it's got is the collective intelligence of all the things that we've done together. And props to those software writers who figured out how to make it do the thing it does. And then the question still for us is like, what are the questions we're going to ask of it? What tasks are we going to give it to do? And how will we deploy the collective intelligence that these, brilliant software writers have been able to come together? I don't know that that's the path we're on. I'm nervous that its benefits will be owned by a small handful of people who won't think about it that way. But on good days, I'm pretty impressed with it.
Brad, last question. If you don't get a position, a job in the next mayoral administration, what job do you want to have?
I mean, I feel in a really good spot right now. That's one nice thing. I mean, this was a surprising race for me. Didn't go how I had mapped it out, obviously. And for many months, I was struggling to help people see the kind of leadership I can provide. And then down the stretch, just showing up at 26 Federal Plaza, what happened when the ICE agents arrested me, the cross-endorsement, the debates. Like I was then able to show people my leadership. And that's, I mean, I love this city. I am nervous as hell about the times we are living in, but I know like every day you go out in the city and you see people's capacity to come together across these really big lines of difference and make remarkable things happen here. So some version, I feel like maybe I'm like an engineer of what Eric Kleinenberg in his book Palaces for the People calls social infrastructure. Like, how do we build the platforms, whether those are those museums or parks or libraries or subways or public schools or CUNY campuses that give people the capacity to come together And somewhere in that network of social infrastructure, I look forward to continuing to try to help build the platforms that enable New Yorkers to come together and thrive in all these remarkable ways.
So you haven't updated your LinkedIn yet?
I probably should go do it. I only have 5 months left as controller, so I'm gonna go update my LinkedIn page and get it ready.
Brad Lander, thank you so much.
Really enjoyable to talk to you. Thank you.
You can find Juan Manuel Benítez Wants to Know on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, and YouTube. Rate, subscribe, and let me know what you think. In Manhattan, I'm Juan Manuel Benítez.